What are some huge green flags that are often overlooked? When you're not afraid to disagree with them, because you know they'll actually listen rather than just hurting you. Edit. Thanks for the gold and silvers. Kind strangers. This is super important, and I try really hard to keep it in mind. Too many of my friends, while they have a whole ton of good qualities, I'm afraid to disagree with them about certain things because I know it's going to turn into a huge bust-up, complimenting others behind their backs. Alongside that, defending others who aren't there to defend themselves. Even when the rest of the group is nodding along with whatever behind their back insult has been brought up, that the person is actually listening to you. I was seeing a guy recently and I told him I was feeling anxious about something. We spent 5 minutes having a sort of argument about whether I should be anxious about this situation. Then he stopped talking and said, "This clearly isn't working. Let's try it differently," and asked me to start the conversation again. I was a bit confused, but the second time, instead of arguing, he asked me questions about how I was feeling and why. I really opened up and realized some things I hadn't thought of before. That's a good listener. He sounds like someone who can adapt. This is something I've been struggling with a lot recently. People used to tell me that I was a good listener and could remember even minor things very well. Now that I have a new job with long shifts, I noticed I find it hard to listen to people and even have to suppress an aggressiveness I didn't used to. This makes it a little easier for me to understand other people that react aggressively when being talked to after a long shift. But I'm kinda worried I might lose this quality of mine. When someone admits to their mistake, owning up to it and does not make an excuse for failing, but trying to better themselves through that experience. Being positive about it. Greater than. Does not make an excuse for failing, but tries to better themselves through that experience. Come see my collection of heartaches. He cried. My broken ambitions. The dreams that have died. I'm taking a journey. I'm making a list of chances I've scuppered and shots that I've missed. There's flaws and frustrations, and they're on the shelf. Misfortunes and messes I've made for myself. There's mountains of blunders and bloopers to see. There's fountains of failures completed by me. Come see my collection. I'm sure we'll have fun. We'll browse it together. And then when we're done, he laughed with delight and a shake of his head. I'll show you my wall of successes, he said. An NBSP. Carrot, carrot, carrot. General mindfulness. The little things you don't really notice if you don't pay attention. Pushing a chair in after sitting in it. Asking questions and being involved with you. You can learn a lot about somebody by paying attention to how they listen. And having a partner that listens is an absolutely amazing feeling. There is a huge gap between being aware of what you're saying and understanding what you're saying. A good listener is priceless. I never thought about this until I reconnected with an old friend who told me that I was a good listener. His words are seared into my memory because they made me feel so proud and appreciated. You always made me feel heard. Like what I had to say was important. You weren't just waiting for your turn to talk. We didn't actually hang out a whole lot, but if we ran into each other at a party or something, we were stuck on each other and would literally talk until the sun came up. Some people you just really connect with. My boyfriend will sometimes be upset and start a sentence with, "well you," and then takes a second and starts over with, "I feel." I notice every time and I try and be the same way. I remember learning about this in elementary school and they were referred to as I messages. The goal is to focus on explaining how something is making you feel versus telling the other person what they are doing and assigning meaning to their actions for the monsieur. I feel lonely when you're on your phone while I'm talking to you. Versus, why do you always ignore me when I'm talking to you? Quote, I remember thinking it was really stupid as a kid, but as an adult it's something I have remembered. I can be a little hot-tempered, but I try to do this when I get in an argument with my spouse. Damn good advice. Gemstone. Someone reading a book you recommend. That's commitment of free time and respect for your word. Also, someone reading a book. When they don't make you feel guilty for occasionally wanting to do things by yourself. Edit. Thanks for the silver. My guy practically kicks me out of the house the few times I've mentioned wanting to go do something with friends or just myself. It's so refreshing from my past relationships. When you're talking with someone and they remember what you're talking about or were talking about at one point. Another one is when they remember that you've done certain things with them and bring it up from time to time. Other than that, it's the normal stuff that it shouldn't be overlooked, or the little things, I guess. Greater than they remember what you're talking about or were talking about at one point. Okay, so I have a very good memory, and I tend to remember even the most insignificant stuff someone tells me, even something like a throwaway conversation or a fact about themselves they mentioned in passing. Stuff that those people themselves probably forgot they told me right after they told me. Occasionally, those things will come up in conversation sometime later, and the response very often is, "Wait, how do you know that?" Quote, "I was told several times to my face that that's creepy. That it makes people feel like I'm stalking them, monsieur, so I stopped doing it. I pretend like I don't remember most things people tell me. Even though I remember very well that Clara has a dentist appointment on Wednesday and Joey had to change a light bulb 2 nights ago. Not saying you're wrong, but too good a memory can backfire from time to time. I had a guy tell me one time all about how excited he was to get to see his daughter, Grace, the following weekend. I worked as a bartender. After that weekend passed and he came in, I asked, 'Did you have a good weekend with Grace?' And he proceeded to say I was a psycho stalker and to never let his kid's name come out of my mouth again. Yup, buddy. My bad for being nice. Username checks out. When someone is quick to give credit and slow to place blame. Such a great sign that someone will celebrate other people and acknowledge them. And will be really kind and benevolent when something bad happens. Pushing a chair in at a public establishment when you leave. What assholes don't do this? Too many in the US for sure. Always seeing chairs left out. Learns the small things about you. My boyfriend remembered my shoe size after mentioning it one time in some random conversation with someone else . When my shoes started falling apart, he just showed up with a new pair. Also having remembered that my favorites are black on black chucks. Another random convo about never being able to find what I like at Ross. He also bought me a new pair when I complained about my feet hurting. Wasn't even due to my shoes really. Just a result of working 16 hours a day. He knew my dress size and surprised me with a couple really nice ones. It's also just really nice that he knows my style and tastes. Everything he has bought me has fit perfectly and I think they're stunning. I was with my ex for 4 years and when he surprised me with a new pair of shoes over 3 years in, I was kind of shocked at how not me they were. The guy had known me for 13 years altogether and I was like, seriously, have you ever seen me in white sneakers? He bought me things he would have liked me to wear, not things that I would like. Edit because I want to add that I was totally appreciative of the ex buying me shoes. Even if they were something I would never buy for myself. I really didn't even say anything to him about them other than to thank him and tell him how sweet it was. Just reread the comment after a response and figured someone might think I was a dick about it, lol. I remember being confused about gifts that were not really me. Then I realized most of them were based on the idea of me being a generic person with standard tastes, which is okay, but confusing when I have previously spoken about my preferences. It made me wonder if my exes even knew, or cared, who I was. Treating people you don't have to treat respectfully. With respect. I'm currently an Uber Eats driver and I've found the huge contrast in the manner hospitality staff treat me when I'm picking up orders, compared to when I'm a customer. It seems because I'm not a paying customer, Service staff seem to think it's okay to treat me like shit or a lesser individual. It's funny how people always say you can judge people on how they treat service staff, but when it's the other way around, it's all good. Red flag equals rude to servers. Green flag equals pushes in chair. Can you tell that a lot of servers browse AskReddit? When someone can admit they're wrong at it. My first silver. Thank you, anonymous Redditor. Bangladesh edit. I would have never expected this to get a gold, but thank you, kind stranger. When they show genuine interest in you or what you're doing, they listen to you go on and on about shit they don't care about and don't understand because they know you enjoy talking about it. One of my good friends is in a new relationship after being single for the last 4 years or so. Holy hell, it's all he ever talks about now, and the guy talks a lot. It used to be all fishing, hunting and stuff like that. That being said, I listen because he's never been happier, in my opinion. He's never been an emotional guy, but he's getting there now, which tells me he really likes her. I am stoked for him, even though it means I never see him anymore. Putting the used grocery cart back where it's supposed to go. My grandma used to justify leaving the cart in the parking lot by telling us that it's someone's job to collect them and that putting it back was taking away jobs. I knew the truth though. She was just lazy and inconsiderate. Be pal and tell your sweet OL grandma that I hate her. Treating people in services jobs as equals. The amount of people who lack empathy for others in retail, customer service can be surprising. Obviously not always the case, but I think this is especially telling of someone who has never worked retail, customer service before. Today, I hung out with a couple of friends. One of them couldn't fathom why I tip $2 with my tea. I'll usually do it if I know I'll be hanging out there for a while, hogging up their limited space and resources. Plus, one employee looked dead inside when I told him the sink was clogged. Sounded like it wasn't the first time. When I explained the above, with a reminder that I've worked retail before, she quickly glossed over it, said we simply had different experiences, and changed the topic to something else. Using that weird flashy light on your car before you merge your turn. Edit. First Reddit silver. Thank you. Drive a BMW, don't think it has this feature. Care to elaborate? It's the stick by the big wheelie thing that goes up and down. Makes a clicky noise. Good communication. If you can communicate really well with someone, that is huge. Quality communication between two people can be way more important in a relationship than compatibility, and is a huge part of good chemistry. For example, one of my friends has gone on a couple dates with this one girl. In the first date they talked for 3 hours, and the second date they talked for 4 hours. But he's not sure if he wants to see this girl again. Like what? My boyfriend actually wasn't great at communication when we first met, and I had just gotten out of a relationship where the communication was very bad. So I was determined to teach myself how to communicate well with someone. And he eventually leaned into it and decided he wanted to learn how to communicate along with me. Now several years later, we are so good at communicating. We never fight, and if we do get into a disagreement, we are really good at communicating our way into a good place pretty quickly. Someone being willing to learn how to communicate is good too. A lot of times people don't know how to do it from the get-go, but if they're willing to learn, that can make all the difference. Edit. Just wanted to say thanks for my first silver. I don't know why I'm this excited about a pointless award, but I'm very excited right now. Double edit. And the gold grinning squinting face. I totally get the appeal of these awards now. Admitting when they don't understand something and asking questions about it until they do. A few years ago I was at a party with a friend of mine and another friend of a friend who is a physicist who worked for a startup that produced specialized magnets for quantum computing. My friend asked the startup guy about his work, and he explained it. and everybody else in the room just nodded and acted like they knew what he was talking about. But she said, "I don't understand. Can you explain that a different way?" And he did. And then she kept asking questions for quite a while. And by the end of it, we actually all did understand what his company did instead of just being polite and pretending we did. And it was super interesting. A couple of people thanked her afterward, basically for having the self-confidence to admit she didn't have any clue what he was talking about and not being afraid it would make her look dumb. Because the rest of us were all content to pretend we knew instead of actually taking the initiative to find out. I respected her so much for that. I feel like so many people stopped asking questions because of bad experiences in school. I remember asking my math teacher a question and her just shutting me down and never answering me. Or one teacher would just spell dictionary every time we asked her how to spell a word. Come on. How the hell am I supposed to find it in a dictionary when I don't know what the first letter is? I only had one teacher that went out of her way to make sure we had plenty of time to ask questions, and would research answers in her spare time if she didn't know it and get back to us. Mrs. Pierce, wherever you are, you give me back the confidence to ask questions, and I am forever grateful. And to me, that would be another green flag. Someone who is willing to take the time to explain. I greatly appreciate someone who is willing to explain things until I understand. And I love to learn. My BF and I will discuss new info and look stuff up. I love our conversations. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.